or hear a knock, and we like turn around and it's Robbie Williams. And he's just like, what's this, guys? And we're like, wait, what's that? Because Robbie Williams was just like, oh, it's just a song we're working on. He's just like, that sounds really good. It's like, go on,
well,
guys.
then you must have known it was a hit because Robbie Williams gave it the stamp of approval.
Robbie gave it the stamp, bro. Yeah, that was a mad little moment.
That is crazy. What's up, guys, and welcome back to the Audio Movers podcast. I am your host, Mixed by Jocelyn, and today we have a very, very special guest on producing tunes for people like Central Cee, Burna Boy, Tion Wayne, and the list goes on. We have LiTek. What's going on, bro?
Hello. I'm good, man. How are you?
I'm good. Thank you for joining us today at the amazing Abbey Road Studios.
Yes. Yeah, man.
Brilliant to be here.
Yeah, man. Always a pleasure to be here.
So let's jump straight into it.
Yeah.
First question, because you've produced some crazy records, and arguably and probably well deserved one of the more popular producers in the UK at the moment. I'd love to know how you got started in music. Like, what was the first sort of like, was it producing? Was it engineering? What was the journey?
Well, the first little bits of music sort of musical endeavors was writing bars, but like
you're a lyricist.
Oh well, I mean, like I'm talking when I was like super young, like not even a teenager maybe. So like you can imagine the bars were just terrible. But I was just like I came to the UK and I'm just like watching all these music channels and like Eminem, 50 Cent, that whole era. I was just like, whoa. What is all this? So I started messing about, and I remember the point that the big like point in my career was, I think it was on my birthday. I turned to my uncle and I was just like, "Oh, I need money to buy beats for my mixtape," and he said, "Why don't you make your own beats?" And I was just like,
"How old are you?"
I mean, I must have been like 12, 13 maybe, like if that. Yeah, about 12, 13. So reluctantly, I went with him to the Apple shop and he got me that Apple M Audio keyboard, plugged it into GarageBand, and I remember I think I remade the White Stripes, Seven Nation Army. It was like pretty easy to figure out. I was like, this is
on a keyboard.
On the keyboard.
I know it's very popular on the guitar.
I know. Cool. It was that. I think it was definitely that. And then I must have just made like a little backbeat, and then from then on, it was just like production.
Amazing. Yeah. So you started off wanting to be a rapper, making beats out of necessity.
Yeah.
And then that's what's taken over. You say you moved to the UK.
Yeah.
Where from?
So I was born in Ukraine. Moved around the world a little bit, and then went to Cyprus for a bit to learn English. And then I think when I was 5 or 6 years old, I came to the UK and been here ever since.
Oh, amazing.
Yeah, man.
Picked up the Manny accent.
Picked up the accent, yeah. My accent kind of like, everyone from Manny sometimes is like, you don't even sound like you're from here. But anywhere I go, if I spend enough time there, I'll start picking up the little bits and bobs. So it's forever evolving.
Off camera, just before we started filming, you spoke a little bit about your like endeavours before you got into music. What were they?
So football was my life. Day in, day out training. Ended up signing for Man United when I was like super young. I think when I was like 9. I was kicking a ball like from the moment I could walk. My granddad was like, "Here's a ball, like let's go train." So I didn't really know much else, and then music was kind of like this side thing that I was developing a passion for, I guess. And then the football kind of eventually stopped about 15, 16 years old. Went on to get an education, you know what I mean?
But you were signed by Manchester United?
Yeah.
Wow, that's crazy.
I guess, yeah, it's pretty crazy, yeah.
So there could have been a whole different LiTek out there.
Yeah. Exactly.
What was the transition from being football obsessed to being music obsessed?
I guess the only transition was just the amount of physical activity I do every day. Like, it went from like waking up before school training, after school training, do you know what I mean, to like, I mean, there was no right today I'm from today I'm now doing music. Do you know what I mean? Music was always just one of those things that it's kind of like my little escape from whatever was going on, you know what I mean? And then I ended up meeting some people, you know, in school and this and that, who like told me, oh yeah, I remember this one kid who was going to Parswood, which is another school in Manny, and he was doing like BTEC music, and they were on Reason.
Yeah.
And I remember him saying, oh yeah, my teacher burned me a copy of Reason. I was just like, wow, that's sick. Like, in my school there was no like, you know, there was like IT, I'd have music, but you know, like a completely different like type of music.
Keyboard with DJ scratch.
Yeah, exactly. It was not like these guys were like, I was just like, whoa, you're on some serious stuff there. So I managed to get him to get me a copy of Reason. And then that's where I started. Like,
so Garageband to Reason.
Yeah, just messing about in Garageband. And then when I got Reason, obviously this was a bit like just on the cusp of YouTube like era, like before really tutorials were like everywhere you look. So like, but Reason, I think like for that time was one of the leading, at least to my knowledge anyway. Do you know what I mean?
It was a combination of Reason and Fruity Loops.
Yeah,
people used to do like
yeah.
the rewire.
Exactly, yeah. And I think because a lot of the bassline stuff at that time, I think, was made on Reason.
Yeah.
Which
the big open like Reese bass kind of things.
Yeah. So yeah, I just started messing about on Reason.
That's crazy. I mean, just thinking about, so obviously, you know, most kids dream of being able to get, you know, even close to where you got in football, you know, actually being like recognized and signed by Manchester United is crazy. Yeah. To now, you know, flipping it around, you're working with global superstars like Burna Boy and Central Cee. Yeah. There must be some sort of level of like obsession or commitment that's like inside of you. Yeah. Would you say that was true?
That's a good point, man. I think there's quite a lot, like, I think because I spent so many years living like quite a disciplined lifestyle. I grew up with my grandparents who was hella disciplined, man. Like, I didn't go out, you know what I mean? It was all just like, I'm a professional athlete. So that mentality, I think, got instilled in me. And without even realizing, I guess, it like carried over into my music. And because I think music is my real passion. That it never really feels like I'm just like, oh, I need to like go and like work really hard and make all these beats. It's just like I've got no interest in doing anything else really. So I'll gladly sit here and
so an obsession, but you know, because you love it so much, it doesn't feel like you're not overworking.
Yeah.
But maybe to an outsider's perspective, it's like
it's like, oh my god,
what is this guy doing? Because it does take that, you know, like you really managed to.
Yeah.
I mean, the first time I met you,
we're
talking maybe 5 years ago,
longer,
6
bro.
maybe.
I was in uni, bro.
Oh really?
So that would have been 2012 maybe or something.
Yeah. Maybe.
Am I wrong?
2000... You might be right. Yeah.
No. I'm tripping. I went to uni in 13, 14, 15. It was like at the back end of my uni days. Might have been 2015, 16.
Yeah.
Still a good.
I think that sounds about right to me. We were doing that session with Jamal Edwards. Yeah. And you definitely weren't producing drill or anything like that back then. As far as I can remember, it was more house stuff. It was, right?
So like I did start off by making beats, as I said, and then when I went to uni, the thing is like I was struggling to find rappers essentially, and vocalists, and
would you say that was because you were in Manchester?
Yeah, and because I wasn't going out, I was aware of the scene in Manny, like, and also a lot of the beats I was making, it was all very like American inspired, so it wasn't no like grind. I wasn't making no grind beats, you know what I mean? So yeah, and then I was struggling to find good vocalists, obviously, like just on Facebook. My Facebook was full of like Atlanta people and all sorts of randomers. Like I was on forums and stuff, and then eventually I just got tired of it all, and I was just like, do you know what? I went to uni and discovered house music and just electronic music in general, and I was just like, oh, so I can make a tune and not have to rely on anyone else but me. kind of thing. That's where it stemmed from. That was exciting to me. And that's where like LiTek, the artist project, kind of like started. And that's where you caught me, because I think I'd just released Uber, which is like my first signed song to Sony, I think it was, like, which was crazy, you know what I mean? And then I think Jamal, hold tight Jamal, because I don't know how he found me, but he was he was that guy.
Jamal was a massive dance music fan. Not a lot of people knew that about him,
right?
But he loved it. Like, I remember being working at Junction 2 Festival and seeing him coming out of a bush, like dancing his heart off, and I'm like, dude, what are you doing here? But he was just, you know, he was that kind of character. So that's he had an appreciation for the music. You know what I mean?
So thank you to him, man. Really, I mean, I didn't know anything. I don't think I'd ever been to London like properly. And then obviously, linked us up. And what was his name?
Who did we have in?
It was Gracious K.
Gracious K, it was, Gracious K, would you say that was that sort of like the start to, you know, delving in and working with actual artists at that point then? Yeah.
I think so, yeah. That was definitely... I mean, thinking back to it, bro, it was all a blur, you know what I mean? But, like, that was my first, like, little experience of, like, okay, you know, I've got you at the helm there.
Yeah, I can just do my thing.
Yeah, kind of thing, you know what I mean? Like, I'm still so used to doing it all myself, you know what I mean? Like, but it was nice to, like, okay, this is what proper studio session feels like, you know what I mean? Got someone I can trust there, you know what I mean? Yeah, it was nice.
It was a cool studio as well, it was good.
Yeah, it was.
Where did the sort of like, because it felt like to me, I met you that time, and you know we had a brilliant session together. You know, for whatever reason, we never actually crossed paths again, which happens all the time in the industry. But I just remember, you know, I followed you on Instagram, see you, and then out of nowhere it was like, oh, he's making like big drill tunes now, what, like, and like other, you know, more sort of like UK hip hop and stuff like that, like super bouncy records, like it just totally switched up, and it felt like, to me, it felt like it was like an overnight switch. Obviously, it wasn't. But like, what was the story behind that sort of progression?
Like while I was in Leicester, I went to uni in Leicester. I had a studio there, like a studio space, and I just started recording people and started. Just, not working with too many vocalists, to be fair, still. I think it was after I came back to Manchester, I got a studio space and then started, because basically, like, I needed to start making money. Like, otherwise, like, it's just a bit of a, you know what I mean, what we're doing. Because I dropped out of uni. I didn't actually, like, the whole...
What was you studying at uni?
I was studying law.
Okay.
So, like, it was one of them, like, obviously the football stopped, it's time to get, like, a proper degree now, you know what I mean?
Smart decision for a producer, though, to study law.
Like, yeah, I wish I saw it like that, but I didn't. I think there was, like, the thing is, obviously, you know, you get forced to do these courses at the start, and I was just like, oh, there's nothing to do with... And then by the time it got to intellectual property, which is the only one that kind of relates to this field, I was already so, like, I'm done with this.
Dead. Yeah. Fair enough.
But yeah, man, I came back to Manchester and then I got my studio space, and then just started working with people like 24K, who is just a producer engineer, you know what I mean? And then I met wHYJay, who had his spot as well. Obviously a long time, still current collaborator. And then I was just like, okay, yeah, sick, I'll do the same. Got a studio, got a mic, got a pair of speakers, and then that's it. Just started running sessions, charging hourly rates, and then obviously, like, that just taught me a lot about the dynamic of, you know, how to help an artist get a tune done, and yeah, just all of it really. And then obviously, so all of them guys were rappers. Yeah. So I stopped the whole.
And then, so your production slowly changed.
Exactly, yeah.
Was you making beats to them like straight off the jump, or was it sort of like, okay, they're coming with their instrumentals and I'm just tracking them?
Yeah, it was at the start. It was just like, I'm here to just, you know, use me as a guy that
I'm a service.
Yeah. And then it became, you know, known that I also make beats, and
Yeah.
I could do you. I can't remember what I was doing. Maybe a package deal or something, like just hustling basically. You know what I mean?
So like come record, jump on my beat,
Yeah.
and mix and master.
Exactly.
And,
Yeah, all of that. You know what I mean? We were all doing that. wHYJay was on the same shit. Like, yeah, man. It was just a hustle really for like a good 2 years, something like that. I don't know. Like, eventually, bit by bit, you know, you sort of get your way up to like the main money guys, and then yeah, went from there.
So you mentioned wHYJay being like a long-term collaborator, and obviously a lot of your like major records that you've got out have been in collaboration with him.
Yeah.
So he's clearly like a massive part of your story and your growth. So I'd love to know a bit more about how you guys met and like maybe even like the first song you guys ever worked on.
Yeah, man. So the first time we linked up, we were doing the same thing individually, and then you know you end up finding out about each other, and then I think we'd cross paths at like certain events and stuff, and then it just came to a point where I think we just like, should we link up just to like vibe, and then it turned out we like sat down because you know you asked me about the first beat. We sat down to make a rap beat. You know what I mean? And it was just like, oh yeah, this is cool, I guess. Like, tried to make maybe another beat, and it was like, yeah. And then we're just like, should we just make something just completely different? And then turns out that me and wHYJay share a very similar music taste. And, you know, I come from like, you know, house and stuff, so I'm like, oh yeah, like, it's hard to find someone that likes a lot of different stuff, but his music taste is just as eclectic as mine. So
Right.
he's putting me on tunes, I'm putting him on tunes, you know what I mean? And it's just like this exciting thing now. And then like once we clocked that we're like in a similar headspace, we just made like this. We still have it to this day. We might release it at some point. It's just like this like Daft Punky, Kanye West sort of blend. I don't know.
Sounds mental.
Yeah, we were just like jumping on the mic doing vocals. You know what I mean? I was just like, sick. This is fun. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So yeah, man, we just started working pretty much.
I definitely want to hear that.
Yeah,
Even
yeah.
if you just send me a private.
Yeah, yeah, you can definitely hear it.
But what was the first tune you guys had that came out that of like notable success, where it was like sort of like the beginning of this new era of like work for you guys?
I think it would have been together. Like wHYJay had just done Taste for H. H was like super blowing up. It was all going off for him. And then I think we produced Mice, a tune called Mice for H, and I think that was our first sort of big enough collaboration that sort of got millions of streams. It ended up on FIFA and stuff. I think that was our first one, unless I'm like getting it confused, but I'm pretty sure that was the first one.
Right.
And then we got signed to the same publisher, started doing trips together to London. And then it all kind of just made sense in the end to just get a spot there. Because we were both like outsiders, do you know what I mean? Like going there, not really knowing what's what. He'd been down to London a few times. I was just like a complete freshman.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Had you had any sort of success like making beats in like a solo manner, like at that point as well?
Not. I had like obviously my house stuff. I did like some remixes and like they were like my solo stuff, and then like I had a couple tunes with like Manny guys. I think like Bait Lies was like a big one for me personally, by like Sammy and P1 and A1. That was like a Manchester tune, and then I worked with like Mastermind. I did a tune for him, another Manchester guy, with Band OK. That was like a big one. I had like Tunde, Crash Bandicoot. I had a few like solo moments where I was just like, okay, sick, like I'm an established enough name for people to like know me.
Yeah,
and then
but get through the door.
Yeah. But nothing really on like, you know, like a nationwide level, let alone global level.
Yeah. You mentioned your publisher, and you've been signed by the same publisher. What you said off camera, that was NQ. Yeah, and that's a universal publisher. How did that come about, and like was it sort of like a conscious decision that they signed you like at the same time, or was it more of a coincidence?
Do you know what? I don't know. It might have been. I remember Adex, who like owns NQ. He's also Manchester based. Everyone's Manchester based. Like he just like shouted at me and said, "Oh, do you want to have a conversation about a potential publishing deal?" And I was just like, "Okay, interesting. Like, let's have a chat." And then it all kind of stemmed from there. And then I signed mine maybe a few months after wHYJay signed his. Yeah, I'm not sure if it was intentional or it just happened to be like that. But
And you guys were already sort of working together at like
Yeah.
at that point. So that was probably the publisher making some
Probably.
like clever decisions there.
Yeah.
So that's really cool, man. So with all of this sort of like success and how it's built up, just really trying to paint a picture. What was the moment where, you know, because now you've got undeniable success as a producer.
Yeah.
What was the moment where you sort of like a pinch me moment where you were like, oh my God, what is happening right now? Like this is like huge.
Yeah. I mean, for me personally, like, there's always like, I'm never really like, sometimes you do have to take a step back and think like, oh, this is actually sick. But I remember being at the Mastermind and Band OK video shoot, and I was just like, yo, this is sick. We're like in London, I'm like in the video, and you know what I mean? Like a lot of these man, like I was like, this is sick, you know what I mean? I guess that was probably like, yeah, and then doing that tune for Tunde, I guess, was also just like sick because it went off like, you know, and then obviously COVID struck, so I felt myself like picking up a bit of pace, and then neither War, the tune that I did for Mastermind Band OK was called War, or Crash Bandicoot, like didn't really get to hear them in the clubs or like because of COVID. And then like after COVID, it all kind of became a bit of a like on like, you know what I mean, one thing after another, because like, you know, I feel like as producers we all kind of still worked, I suppose, you know what I mean?
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
And then sessions.
So now suddenly you've just got these tunes after tune after tune. So it's like hard to sort of like, you know, stop and like, you know, look around for a second because it's just release after release.
You just get like chucked in sessions, and then that so quickly became just like the norm, session every day or every other day, every week, you know what I mean? 2 weeks in London, back to money, you know, 3 weeks in London, back to money, and just like, it's just non-stop. You know?
When it comes to making these records, like what's your preferred approach? Because in production, you know, there's a few different ways that people do it, like sending out beat packs or, you know, being more sort of connected to the artist. Like what's the way that you like to make your music?
Probably being in the room, definitely, I'd say, like, just because that's where probably we like come from. That's how we like, both wHYJay and myself, like that's how I like learn the game. Like that's what's comfortable for me, you know what I mean? A lot of people probably wouldn't feel as comfortable, but and also like there's more chance of a record coming out, maybe, I don't know, like it's a whole different, like we sometimes talk about this, it's like a whole different skill, like it's like a psychological sort of
understanding the artist and what kind of vibe they're on,
exactly,
and creating the record around that
that
exactly, moment.
Man.
Yeah, I totally understand that. And I do feel like, you know, for any producers listening, I think that's sort of like maybe somewhere where they let themselves down a bit by just staying in the room, never venturing out, never inviting anyone in. You know, being a recluse is not going to do you any favors, because the likelihood these artists get sent hundreds of beats every week.
Yeah, man.
Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And especially if they're competing with guys like yourself, you're going to find it very hard to even get that track heard.
Yeah. There is something nice about being that guy as well, I suppose. But
if it works for you,
if it works, like you got to find what works for you. Do you know what I mean? There's like OZ, producer OZ. Is he from Turkey? I can't remember, but like he doesn't even go America, but he's like one of the, if not the biggest producer in the world. He just sends beats. You know what I mean? Like, if you find, obviously there's loads of melody makers as well, loop makers. There's pockets that you can find yourself as a producer.
That's become quite a big thing now, isn't it? Like sample makers.
Huge thing.
Like just all I do is make samples.
Yeah. Like I quite like that aspect of it. Like quite like the melody. You know what I mean? That's, if I'm making something, the beat needs to touch me, like the melody. So Yeah, man. Utmost respect for all these melody makers, and I'm glad that there's a way for them to, you know, be part of the.
Yeah, 100%. And obviously, you know, if you're not that way inclined and you don't like being around people, but I do think there's something to be said in terms of, like, you know, you as an example, having that success and having those records, like being in the room and connecting with the artists, like there's nothing that can beat that. Do you know what I mean? I think it is really important to sort of like go out and network, because at the end of the day, music is personable, and it's, you know, it's you're dealing with people's art, so they want to know who they're dealing with. You know what I'm saying? Man.
That's a good point.
So
real talk.
One of the things that I read is there was a Grammy nomination.
Yeah, man.
With the Burna Boy record.
Yeah.
Is that something that's important to you? Getting those kind of accolades and, you know, being in that sort of like that conversation.
Yeah. It's something that, like, I don't really think about. It's just in the back of my mind. Like, it's one of those things, like, I know if I keep working hard, then I guess eventually those things will happen. But it's not something that I think about. No, I'm not like trying to make Grammy sounding music, but it's definitely something that I'm, you know, like, proud of, I guess. Like, it's sick. Like, why not? I know I'm not putting it in my bio and stuff, like waving it like a flag, but
something to take home to the family.
Yeah, I guess if we won the Grammy, then that would have been.
But even being nominated,
that's
something that's like.
No, trust me, bro.
You know, that's a goal that people can only dream of.
For sure.
You know?
Yeah. No, it was sick. It was sick.
And I find things like that, you know, coming from a family that doesn't really understand music, like my family. I can't speak for yours.
No, I'm the same.
Yeah, from what you said, being like football orientated, sports, that sort of stuff doesn't sound like maybe it wasn't the most musical family. It's very hard to sort of get across your achievements to the family. You know, they don't know. They don't know who H is.
No,
they don't. You know what I mean? Like Central Cee, who's that? Do you know what I mean? Like, obviously, we all know who these people are, so we understand the achievement. But when you get those kind of accolades, like, you know, a plaque, platinum, gold, or a Grammy, that's something that universally is understood.
Oh yeah, for sure. When I told my family about the Grammy, you know, Grammy's a Grammy anyway.
Yeah.
Grammy, you know what I mean? Like, oh my God, like, Grammy, no way. Like, wow. I was like instantly like, yeah.
So that, and did that feel good to be able to sort of like get that recognition?
Yeah, for sure. Like, it was a big, like, journey, like an uphill battle, if you will, to get, like, my family's approval and support. Yeah, like, they were always supportive, do you know what I mean? But, like, yeah, for them to understand that it's working, do you know what I mean? So that I'm not wasting my time.
They just want to know my money in the bank account.
Exactly, yeah. Like, my nan only recently stopped asking me, like, you know, like, maybe, you know, you can still go back and get your degree. Like, I'm just like, Nan, don't worry. Like, it's patterned. Like, don't worry, I'm good. But
yeah, and that's those things there kind of give everyone else that sort of like universal. Cool.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? Maybe for you personally, it's, you know, you're much more concerned with getting the record out and how people respond to the record. Not so much
I'm too like in it, you know what I mean? It's like on to the next.
Yeah. That's cool though, and I think that's a really good attitude to have, to be honest, because it doesn't distract you from it. Do you know what I mean? There's no complacency there.
Yeah.
And that seems to be a theme with like your whole career. It's like constantly pushing.
Yeah,
next, bigger.
Yeah.
That being said, you know, it's a nice segue to it. Like, you spoke about making at the beginning of your career, making American kind of beats.
Yeah.
You know, now being so heavily dominant in the UK scene, having like undeniable UK bangers, and now, you know, with the success of Doja, like being so big overseas as well. Is that sort of like on the horizon for you to start reaching out and connecting with American artists and trying to go overseas and working with other you know, hip hop artists, things like that?
Yeah, for sure, bro. Like, Doja was like our ticket to America, like, you know, quote unquote, like, because it was such a global song. And, you know, as it was going off, we were just like, right. We'd already started going to America. I think we went there like once or twice and just like started being there. You have to be there, you know what I mean? Like, but then after Doja came out, it was a lot easier to get into certain rooms, a lot easier to be like seen by certain people. It definitely opened so many doors. Yeah. I'm like, you know, both me and wHYJay are forever grateful. Sometimes we do stand there and just be like, one sec, bro, like, what's going on there? We've got Doja, like, that is such a blessing, like, you know what I mean? So, yeah, man, like, definitely, like, we've got some exciting stuff happening with some American people as well, like.
Anything you want to disclose?
I mean, I think there might be a record with Marshmello, which is a drum and bass tune.
Wow.
This is the thing, like, this is why we connected, me and wHYJay, because we make so much like random stuff.
That's like a off record. Like I was not expecting you to say Marshmello. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah. Like, you know, there's no guarantee of that coming out or whatever. But yeah, like we were in with Marshmello. We've got a tune with Clean Bandit coming out, which is like a reggaeton tune with like a guy called Daryl from South America. I think he's from Puerto Rico or something.
Amazing.
So yeah, like.
Venturing out there.
Yeah, man, like it's always been a big part of just the journey, man. Like I've produced every genre under the sun, man. I had like a dubstep alias, you know, like I've skipped a few little moments in the career, but like finding my feet, like along the way, you end up just doing a bit of everything.
That's interesting you say dubstep, and I'm gonna segue a little bit because this was something that I wanted to talk about. Yeah, the record "In for the Kill." With Tion Wayne, right? That is a legendary sample, right?
Yeah.
Me personally, I was obsessed with the Scream remix.
Same.
Is that where the inspiration for using that sound came from?
Do you know what? It's a funny little story, that one. So we had a session with Tion, and we prepped like a bunch of beats, and then we get to the studio. I think it was like Moloko, and we sat there, and he's obviously a bit late, whatever. You know what I mean? Standard. We're used to it by now. We've done enough London trips to know the crack. But we're like kind of glad because we're like going over the beats and stuff. And then out of nowhere, I'm not joking, I get a DM off LaRue.
Really?
Yeah, bro. And obviously my head's falling off. I'm going, yo, wHYJay, it's LaRue. She just messaged me saying, just like, she's a fan of the work, and like, you know, she's working on some stuff, and it would be good to like link up and just chop it up or whatever. And then almost in sync, we just kind of went like, I'm going in for the kill, and like, oh yeah, it's kind of like, we both like without even saying it, just started making a drill version of that. And luckily we got that beat to like just about the stage where you can like show it to an artist. And it wasn't necessarily finished. And Tion burst through the door like, yo, what's this? It was like, oh yeah. You know, after 2 hours of sitting on it, we were just like, oh yeah, is it even good anymore?
Yeah.
We're like, we've got more beats. He was like, no, this, like, let's do this one. And then, yeah.
That's amazing. So LaRue actually inspired it herself by messaging you. That's crazy. I thought you was gonna say, you know, it's like how you've sampled other records where you've just loved the song from back in the day, but it was actually like she inspired it herself and brought it around. Literally. So probably getting clearance for that wasn't an issue then.
No. And when I did eventually meet her, she did say in passing that like, it's funny because she didn't actually know. I didn't tell her. Like that, I was like, oh yeah, sick, we're about to sample you or whatever, you know what I mean? We just did it quietly. And then when I met her, she was just like, oh, you know, so many people have like tried to sample In for the Kill, but I've said like no to like all of them. Right. I got this version the other day, it's like a rap one, and it's like I've said yes to it. And I was like, oh, really? I was like, kind of wounded, thinking, oh, no, someone's done it. I was like, who's the artist? She was like, it's Tion Wayne. I was just like, that's us.
That's my beat.
Yeah.
Oh, my God.
She was just like, no way. Yeah, it was a crazy little moment.
That's crazy.
Yeah, man.
That's so sick. I'm really glad I asked that now.
Yeah.
Because I did love that song, especially the Scream remix. And then hearing it again, having that new lease of life.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And done in like a drill way. And the
yeah.
energy that it brought to it, it gave me that similar feeling of
Yeah.
like the drop in the dubstep version. Do you know what I mean? And
Exactly,
it's like powerful. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, man.
And especially an artist like Tion, like with his like power and presence in the voice, it really, so it was a really, really dope tune. So yeah, cool. That's crazy, that story. I love that. Talking of stories, do you have any sort of, like you saying about, in London all the rappers are late, right? Do you have any horror stories that, like, you know, you don't have to say names if you don't want to, but like just a situation where you were like, oh my God, that was crazy?
Well, it's not so much a horror story, but it was definitely one that pushed the limits of how late sessions can go. Like, we had a session with an artist that we just got told, it was a big artist. We were like proper dying to get in with this artist. And we got told, you know, we got the call. It was just like, oh yeah, can you guys come down? It's like 3 days. To be honest with you, we didn't even know it was going to be 3 days. It was 3 days in the end with this artist, but can you come down for this session? I was like, hell yeah. It's like, it starts at 10 p.m. So it was like, okay, cool. So we get there at like 9:30, you know what I mean? Get in there for 10, this and that. We get a text at like maybe 10:15, 10:30 saying, oh, really sorry, we're going to have to push it back to 11. He's running a bit late. I was like, oh, okay, no worries. Anyway, it's like 3:30, maybe 4 a.m. now. And it just like bursts in the door. It's like, right. We're just like this part, that part, like, oh, it's happening. Like, okay, right. But your body does this thing where it's just like, right, like instant
back
adrenaline. Yeah. Like, and then I think we finished at like 8 a.m. Which, like working with rappers over the years, like we definitely done some late finishes, but that one was just.
Who was the artist? Can you say? Or?
I mean, I guess so. Yeah, Burna.
Oh right, okay.
Yeah, like, you know what I mean.
That makes more sense.
That's where we made Cheat on Me.
Right.
You know what I mean. So, and he
well worth it.
He bowled in, bro. Like, ran some beats. Luckily, was feeling a couple. You know what I mean. He's a presence and a half, man. You know what I mean. He's just like carries himself like a king. So you know, he's just
African giant.
Exactly, bro. So you sat there. You know what I mean. We're just like, okay, right. Is it time to press play on some beats? Like, awkwardly, like press play. You know what I mean? There's like people everywhere, you know what I mean? And then you're sort of doing this thing where you like pressing play on a beat and sort of giving it the side like, is he feeling it? You know, he's like completely straight faced. But you know, you see him doing this a bit and that. And I'm just like, okay, I think that's him really
one
feeling
bead
it.
of sweat's just coming down your brow.
Yeah. We're just like this, like, what's the next beat? Like, but he ended up just like killing it. Like, yeah, he's just another one of those artists that just like lights up the booth. You know, so
amazing.
I'm glad we actually, so the record came out.
It's a really, really good song.
So it was all worth it, man, that 8 a.m. finish. And then two nights after that, it was the same thing. Start at like 3, 4 a.m.
Was this in London?
This was in London, yeah. Not that long ago, yeah.
Amazing. That's crazy.
Yeah, man.
Oh, that's a good story. That is definitely a good story.
Yeah.
Talking of, I mean, this is another story that might come up, but obviously, you know, a big part of your sort of like production is sampling. Yeah, you sample quite a lot of like classic noughties songs, right? Like in Doja, In For The Kill, and other records. Has there ever been a situation where, you know, you've made this record, you think it's coming out, but then you got the rug pulled beneath your feet and the sample didn't get cleared?
It almost got pulled from Doja. Like we were in the studio with Central Cee's manager Bello in Pirate. We didn't have a permanent studio, so a whole type Pirate. Because we've always thought this, like, if Pirate ever find out that we've finished Doja in there, they'd probably be pretty gassed. But we were just in there, like, and it was real squeaky bum time. Like, it was literally like 12 hours before it came out, and I think like phone calls were being made. Everyone was going nuts, you know what I mean? We were kind of like, because, you know, the beat is nothing essentially. It's just like the sample kind of is the main focal point. It's not necessarily, obviously Central is the main bit, but like the sample definitely gives it that little push. And then by the grace of God, it managed to get cleared. I think, if I'm not mistaken, we didn't actually know whether or not it had been cleared. So we were literally like waiting for it to come out on Lyrical Lemonade. We would like press play on it, and I think like we heard it. It was like, okay, it must have been cleared.
Amazing.
Gassed. But
was if I remember correctly, I might be wrong here, but like it was already circulating before it got released. No,
he might have teased it on TikTok. Yeah, I can't remember now.
Because I think that's what sort of like helped the growth of it.
Yeah.
Because there was this like, what is this tune?
Yeah.
And then it came out.
Yeah. I think, yeah, exactly.
Do you think doing stuff like that sort of like helps your cause in getting it cleared? Because the owners of the sample can see, oh, like this is popular.
Yeah, definitely. I think obviously everyone's got a love-hate relationship with TikTok. It's like as a creator and stuff, but yeah, like it's just, I don't know. If it was my tune being sampled and I see it going off on TikTok, it's just like a no-brainer for me. It's just like, obviously everyone loves this. It's only going to bode well for everyone involved. Why not clear it? You know what I mean? And they didn't end up taking...
In an ideal world, yeah.
Yeah, I guess, yeah. Obviously, exactly, yeah. There has been like, I think there's been records where like we sampled Prodigy, that didn't get cleared in the end.
Oh, you should have said I used to work in the studio above them.
Really?
Yeah.
Swear down?
Yeah.
Oh, okay, yeah. Damn. Well.
They had a spot in Tower Yard.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. Well, that one didn't come out. I think we tried to sample the Beatles. Yeah. I know.
Like I could pull some strings.
Yeah. that one we didn't know. We were just like, oh yeah, this is probably not.
This is a reach, yeah. I'm sure there's someone here we can speak to.
Yeah. And I think it was the Beatles. I can't remember who it was, but there has been times. I think we like dabbled with a Queen sample. Yeah,
No, having that knowledge now and going through those experiences, does that come into play when actually like making the record? Like, will you go, there's no point even making a beat with that sample, or do you still just make the beat for the love of it?
I think we kind of just make the beat, yeah, because like, if the song's good enough in the end, because like, so I've had a beat not clear because of the lyrical content of the song, which is sick. Like, okay, right, so that person really cares about what actually, you know what I mean?
How their music's being publicised.
Like it's not just about the money for them. They're not just being difficult for no reason. Do you know what I mean?
It's their moral aspect.
Yeah, like it. So if it's one of them, then by all means, I understand. I thought Doja was going to be one of them, where it's like, this song is surely too big to, because we'd done Flowers for ArrDee, you know what I mean, and that was like, it was a big tune, but like it was like a UK based. It's not like a world hit, like. So yeah, we got lucky. I guess with Doja, got less lucky.
Wow,
with others,
that's crazy. And as you well put it, squeaky bum time sitting in Pirate. Like, Christ, is this gonna gonna come out? That's nuts.
I remember
must be stressful.
Yeah, we were sat in Abbey Road here, not in this room, but yeah, we were like working on it for doing like one of the bits of like, I don't know, either putting the chops in after hearing the vocal, whatever. The door opens or hear a knock, and we like turn around and it's Robbie Williams, and he's just like, "What's this, guys?" And we're like, "Wait, one sec." Because Robbie Williams was just like, "Oh, it's just a song we're working on." He's just like, "It sounds really good." It's like, "Go on,
well,
guys."
Then you must have known it was a hit because Robbie Williams gave it the stamp of approval.
Robbie gave it the stamp, bro. Yeah. That was a mad little moment.
That is crazy.
Yeah.
Mate, you got some nuts stories. That's crazy. Robbie Williams heard Doja before anyone else did. That's literally amazing. I mean, I don't even know how to segue something like that. That kind of threw me for a loop a little bit. I'm not gonna lie, Robbie Williams.
Yeah, man.
But coming off of the stories and the tunes a little bit, get a little bit technical. This podcast is why people come and watch this show. Your 3 favorite plugins and why?
Yeah. So I mean, just going off what gets used the most, I suppose, like Soothe 2, I guess now it is just an essential. I feel like, just because, as I mentioned when we was breaking down the beat, we like to work really quickly, and it is just a bit of a cheat code. Like it's
how are you using it,
bro? Like we just slap it on, and then wherever feels like you know, it's normally to just get rid of harshness, whether it's in the vocal or like sometimes the hats. Sometimes, you know, we'll put like soft clipper on the master, which is nothing new, I guess. Like,
yeah,
you know, and then sometimes even on the master, you know, I've seen Disclosure with their breakdowns they put on the master. We rarely put it on the master, but it's just...
I put Soothe on my master.
Yeah. No, it's definitely like a thing, you know what I mean? But I guess we don't do as much mastering.
No.
So, but Soothe, yeah, it's just an easy way of, rather than sitting there and EQing it and setting Pro Q to dynamic EQ and all this, it's just automatically, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I don't know how you feel about it, but yeah.
I like Soothe.
Yeah,
I think it's
cool
great.
with it, yeah.
I've got YouTube videos about Soothe.
There we go, yeah. All-tight Soothe and Oaken Sound or whatever they call them.
Yeah.
So that's number one. Number two, I suppose, would be Serum.
Yeah.
For me, like, obviously, yeah, that's a lot of my go-to. It's just a nice, well-balanced plugin in the sense that, like, you can get some real sounding. It's a synth, you know what I mean? You're not getting no piano, but I suppose you can get some. You know, it's got a built-in sampler and all this. Like, I used to be a big Massive guy years ago, but then
from your like dance background, and
exactly,
stuff,
yeah. And then they ended up like upgrading it to Massive X, which kind of spun me off a little bit. I don't know, like I didn't really enjoy it as much.
I've not used Massive X.
Neither have I. I think I've opened it one time. Maybe I didn't give it enough. Like I didn't really give it a fair chance. But
yeah, sorry, Native.
Yeah, but All-Tight Native though, I use a lot of their stuff. But Serum, yeah, like a lot of go-to sounds there.
You got one more.
One more, I would say. Let me just have a quick look. We could just quickly have a quick look.
Yeah, this isn't just a fake background. It's actually it's actually LiTek's computer.
Oh man, I mean it's hard to pick like.
If I had a gun to your head.
If you had a gun to my head right now, I can't like for some reason Omnisphere is just there.
There you go.
Omnisphere is great, you know what I mean? Like I've only recently like it was like my go-to, pretty much the only thing I used like for anything other than bass and drums. And then it kind of just like sort of lost interest for it for a little bit. But now it's such a vast library of sound, man. I remember like back in the day obviously trying to crack it. And it was just difficult to crack because it was so big, and I think they had a pretty good anti-crack thing.
It was one of those things. If someone had a crack of it, it was like,
I know, yeah.
Sort me out. I don't know about all that.
Exactly, yeah. And, you know, now we've got all the storage and all, you know, I can afford Omnisphere now, thankfully.
Yeah. Yeah, you were saying 4 terabytes on your computer.
4 terabytes right now, you know what I mean?
So it makes my Mac Mini look puny.
Yeah. And then Trillion, I suppose, gets an honourable mention because it's just like the same as Omnisphere, but just the bass. Yeah. And Keyscape. There we go. 3 in 1. Yeah. 3 in 1, yeah. I like Spectrasonics. Like, there's just good quality sounds.
Yeah. Really they don't sound generic in any sort of way. Yeah, they sound like well developed and they're quite rich sounding.
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah, it's good. So on that like note, using Soothe and stuff, you know, you find yourself, from what I can see, you act as a mixer as well. A lot of the time, would you say that you end up mixing a lot of the tunes? Like you're not sending over the dries to the engineer.
Yeah, rarely. Like a lot of the times, 99% of the time, it is just you're getting it to a standard where it just sounds good. You know, like, and obviously, like, the mix engineer would then just get it all really, you know, get rid of, like, anything that's... You're getting it to a level where...
They're just doing that last 10%. Yeah, across the line.
Which is, like, the most important bit, but slightly, you know what I mean? Like, but, yeah, just so it sounds good in the car, you know, the bass isn't too loud, this and that, like, make sure you level it well, and then, yeah...
Would you say that comes from like your background in like house and dance music, like having that technical knowledge and being self-produced, like your want to be that heavily involved? Because a lot of people would just be like, I don't want anything to do with the mix. Send it to the mix engineer. You know what I mean? Yeah, no, for sure. There was a time when obviously I didn't know any mix engineers, let alone like was able to reach out to any. So you knew me.
Well, yeah. You were the first one, bro. Like,
oh, really?
Yeah, like. Yeah, You were the first.
That's crazy.
Yeah. So like it was all YouTube for me.
Yeah.
Has been my number one. I've never had like a mentor or anything like that. YouTube, I've learned everything from YouTube. Bro. Like,
yeah, well, it's you know, it's safe to say I think the majority of the industry nowadays that is the case.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
and if it's a bad thing or not, I don't know. I would say I went to and did a music tech course. And shout out to Jay Ralph because he was, you know, the guy for me. But I would say when it comes to mixing, I learned far more on YouTube than I ever did at college. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, man.
So
it's one of them. Like there was, I never got to go to music school, and I was always like, oh, would it have been good? But then, you know, the knowledge is there. You end up with little gaps, but then just fill those gaps in your own time.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? Like whenever there's something I didn't know, I just quickly YouTube.
Yeah.
Anything, you know what I mean?
Yeah, dope.
So
a couple more questions before we wrap up. What's next for LiTek? Like, what's on the horizon?
Well, I'm actually restarting, I guess, my artist project. So me and wHYJay have got an artist project called wHYTek, which is wHYJay, LiTek, wHYTek. And then obviously my solo project as LiTek. I'm just going back to, do you know what it is, bro? It feels like music right now is in a, I'm not going to say weird place, but I think it's in a good place where it's like no one really knows what a hit sounds like anymore. It's like I feel like right now people that are just doing things differently and a bit to the left of what is, you know, down the line, that's what's becoming big, and it's refreshing to see, you know what I mean? Things don't sound as polished, things don't sound as like, you know, it's like, what genre is this, you know what I mean? Like you see it all over TikTok. It's just people just pushing the boat out, which is really refreshing and exciting.
Being experimental.
Exactly. Like we've always been experimental, like me and wHYJay, I mean. But so now it feels like there's, you know, a space for us to do a project and for me to do like my own stuff as well. Like
and you said wHYTek.
wHYTek.
Yeah. That's cool.
Yeah.
So like an official sort of collaboration.
Yeah. Like we've had a tune with Tion come out already.
Under that name.
Called Saxo. Yeah. That did great. It's on like 7-8 million streams or something like that.
Amazing.
Yeah. Like our first tune, we had no socials. People knew of us individually. A lot of people knew we worked together, but
this is sort of like an artist face.
Yeah.
To the production.
Yeah.
And is it something that you're conscious of, like developing a unique sound when working under that name together, or sort of still just taking it as it comes?
Yeah. I wish he was here now because we'd both be laughing because we're so like back and forth with what we want to do.
Yeah.
Because sometimes it's almost a bit of a hindrance being so eclectic and just like one day we're waking up, it's just like, nah, let's do like a dark club orientated EP because, you know, we want to DJ and stuff. And then like we'll have a session will go sick and we'll just make this commercial thing. It's like, nah, we're good at this commercial stuff, like let's do this commercial stuff, you know what I mean? So we're like going back and forth, but I think we've landed on a vibe, and we're making music and experimenting, so it's still
and
super
I mean there's no
stages.
reason from the music that you've released, hearing it, there's no reason why you still couldn't take that to like a DJ live setting.
Yeah, exactly.
You know what I mean?
Exactly.
And then putting a unique spin on it, like giving people like a live experience that's different to the main experience.
That's another big one that we always toy with, is like the live element of it. Like wHYJay is a sick drummer. I'm decent on keys, so it's just like we've always wanted to incorporate that bit. You know, we want to do something that makes sense and is fun and also shines light on all the collaborators that we'd have, and you know, just
and not just, you know, playing back the music that everyone's heard, giving them a unique perspective on it.
Exactly. Yeah. Man. Yeah.
Because that's one thing that I find doesn't always happen with like, especially electronic produced music. It's like you're just getting the same experience that you would get in your headphones at home.
Yeah.
Right, but just in a live setting, like how can you push the boat further? And recreate it. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, man. And that's a tough one to do. Like, sometimes when there's like a live band doing like a trap, you know, beat on stage, I'm like, oh yeah, it doesn't quite sound.
No, it doesn't have the same impact.
Yeah,
but maybe take reference from the grime scene, like and DJs like Rukid and how they merge records together and create a whole new thing. You know what I mean? You know this because you come from the dance scene. In my head, I think if I'm hearing these big commercial records but being blended in such a unique way, that's going to be like super exciting for me. Do you know what I mean? And like you think it's going to drop into Doja, but it doesn't, and you keep doing it or something like that. Do you know what I mean?
Exactly, bro.
And then with all these other live elements, food for thought. But
no, trust me, bro. It's
if you do something like that, I'll send me a ticket.
Yeah. Definitely, bro.
One of the last questions I wanted to ask you a few more questions. If you had the opportunity, is there anything you would do different in your career?
Probably not, because like I used to, like, especially when I was just making house music, like I would make, like, obviously house music is a broad term, like there's different pockets of house, and like back then you had to, like, you know, do this one thing, and like, you know, then people would know you for that thing and promoters would book you for them type of shows. But because I was just so all over the shop, I was doing this and that, and I don't know whether at some point that hindered my career, like when I was trying to become like a DJ or whatever.
How eclectic you were, as you say.
But now that I've, you know, a few years have passed, I'm grateful that I've always been on everything, because like now we can just dip our toes into whatever. And as I was saying before, now it feels like the scene is a bit, you know, please make something that just sounds crazy. Yeah, like that is what's gonna do well.
Yeah.
It's like, it's so no, really.
So that blend of like all these different pockets and things that you've tried is giving you that unique power and skill set to produce these records that what the industry's after. Yeah,
exactly. I mean, maybe knuckle down on an instrument earlier and stick with it, because like I've always played keys over the years, like, and then like during COVID I knuckled down and really like became a lot more fluid on it. But like, you know, I played guitar in school, like, and I just wish, because it was just like, you know, guitar, like who wants to play guitar? But if maybe I had a more musical family, they would have been like, oh no, just stay with the guitar. Yeah. But we're here, so whatever happened panned out. Yeah. Well,
my final question to you is, and you know, this is beneficial to a lot of people that will probably be watching this episode. Any advice that you'd give to, like, you know, producers that are trying to make their way into the industry and are trying to get their, you know, get in the right place and get those right records heard by the right people?
I think don't be too precious with, like, you know, be open to collaborate, be open, just be nice to everyone as well. Like, I don't know, like, what advice, like, there's not one thing that you can really pin it down to, you know what I mean? You have to be willing to put yourself out there, whether it's in person or via email and Instagram, and everyone's online these days anyway, but you have to remember this is a business, like, as well. So I've found myself for weeks making all sorts of stuff. It's great and that, but remember, if you want to move forward, you have to think about structure. You have to think about, do you want to be an artist producer, or do you want to be like behind the scenes? You have to have it clear in your head, and then do your best to execute. And, you know, whatever, again, all the knowledge is kind of on YouTube, like, so whatever, like, if you want to be like a background producer, not a background producer, but not an artist, basically, then figure out who engineers for the artists that you work with, who produces for them, who writes for them, like,
get them the beats, get
exactly
cool with them.
Yeah. It's nothing that anyone's not heard before, like, but it's not rocket science. You just have to have perseverance. That's the one big advice, like, just be blindly like
dedicated,
yeah, and just like have this like, it will work eventually. You know what I mean? Whether it takes you a year or 10, like it will work. Like as long as you keep bettering yourself as a musician and whatever else it might be, as long as you keep bettering yourself, then eventually things will happen, and you have to be ready as well when that first door opens. If you've done your hard work, you can then capitalize. Yeah, because then sometimes having that, like, you know, you hear about these like 16-year-old kids that get like a beat placed, but they're not ready to then bounce off that.
Yeah, keep the momentum going.
Exactly. Yeah. Some do, which is great, but yeah.
Well, that was some solid advice, man.
Okay, I'm glad. Hopefully it wasn't.
Yeah. No, we really appreciate it. And thank you so much for joining us today and coming on and telling us your story. Yeah. Really, really appreciate it. Is there anything you want to plug before we go?
Just my socials, because everything you need to know about me is on my socials. So I'm just It's LiTek everywhere. ITSLITEK.
Amazing. Thank you.
Yeah.
Cheers.
Yeah, man.
You've been watching the Audio Movers podcast. I'm your host, Mixed by Jocelyn. If you've liked this video, please give it a like. If you haven't subscribed yet, please subscribe. And I will catch you guys in the next one. Safe. What's up, guys? We're here with LiTek, and he's going to be doing the beat breakdown for Doja by Central Cee. What a moment. Thank you for coming on as well. Appreciate it.
It's all good, man. No worries. Thanks for having me.
We're here at Abbey Road Studios as well, so it's a fitting scenario for such a massive tune.
Yeah, it's a legendary gaff.
Yeah, of course. I would love, firstly, just jumping straight into it, I can see that you're using Ableton. Mm-hmm. Is that the software that you use to make all of your beats?
That is, yeah. I made this beat with wHYJay. He's on Logic. I'm on Ableton, and we're permanently on those softwares, and we just fling each other stems, and that's our workflow.
Yeah. Okay. We'll break into that and like figure out exactly like how the process works. Yeah, so I want to know what your role is and what wHYJay's role is, and sort of like, you know, does it swap out and change and things like that. But to start off, obviously with Doja being such a profound record, like, you know, just off the jump, like, did you know when you first made that instrumental, like, one, that Central Cee was going to pick it up, and two, that it was going to be like as big as it's become?
Didn't really quite know that Central was going to choose it, because we're usually in the room with artists, so we're playing beats to artists pretty much 100% of the time. This time, wHYJay actually sent it back to Central just on a whim, right, and then he ended up choosing it. Obviously, when we made the beat, it did sound like it could be a hit, you know, because of the sample, I guess. But whether or not Central is going to choose it, yeah, I don't know. But
that was one of the things that I wanted to start with. Like, let's talk about the sample. If we can play it.
What, the sample?
Yeah, the sample soloed.
Yeah.
And what inspired you to pick? Because what's the song again?
It's Let Me Blow Your Mind.
Yeah.
Let Me Blow My Mind. Let Me Blow Your Mind.
Early noughties.
Exactly.
Record.
It's one of my, because I moved to the UK just when, like, 2000, maybe 2001 or something like that. So yeah, and then I discovered music in that time, and obviously this was just everywhere, this song, you know what I mean? And it had them drums, the bounce, everything. It just like firmly planted in my soul. So
using these, because like in your music you do seem to sample a lot.
Mm-hmm.
That's sort of like that nostalgic hit for you. That's why you sort of lean into that sort of like era of music.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I think that's sort of like represented a lot from like everyone that listens to it. Like everyone wants to hear those kind of samples now. You know, when hip hop first came around, it was like records from the 80s and the 70s. Do you know what I'm saying? And now we're progressing further and further up the chain, which I actually didn't really think was going to be a thing. You know, I'd listen to like an early noughties tune, I'm like, how would you even sample something like that? There's already so much going on. But you're finding unique ways of doing it. So let's have a listen to the sample and how you've chopped it up.
Yeah, so yeah, it's kind of just staying on one thing. But then obviously you've got your keys that are just going a fifth down, which give it all the whole feeling and make the sample make sense.
The sample's like sped up quite a lot as well.
The sample is sped up, yeah. It didn't take, Ableton's quite good for warping, so I mean, to be fair, there's no warping here, really. The one thing I will say about this beat, we literally made this beat probably in like, I'm not even joking, obviously this gets flung about quite a lot, but like 10 minutes max. Like, we did it on laptop speakers. We were actually with H, staying in an Airbnb, doing sessions with him, just going nuts, making beats, basically.
Would you say the beat maybe was originally made for H in mind?
Do you know what? Possibly so, yeah, because I remember just like we're always having these conversations like, what's a hit, what's a banger, basically. So it's all a bit of a blur, but yeah, we did probably make it. You know, I think H was like writing to something else. We were just in headphones, probably thinking, yeah, we should show this H, yeah.
So when this tune came around, what was the first sort of like spark of like inspiration? Was it the sample that was the first thing that was dropped in, or? Yeah,
like we were in such a flow of making like drill beats with samples in them. It was just like, I guess, a period, right? And this almost was just another sample drill beat. Like there was no like, oh yeah, this one's gonna be the one that's like better than all the others. Do you know what I mean?
Right.
But obviously the sample's just, I see that guitar is just sick.
Yeah, and it has a unique sort of like point, because the first time I heard it, it's one of those things, it makes you think, because you're like, I know that sample, but because of the way that you've used it, it's not obvious straight from the jump like what sample it is.
So you've got so good to hear, bro. Appreciate it.
Yeah, but it's a conversation starter, right? Because now people are like, where do I know that song from? And to people maybe that are less into music like us in terms of like analyzing it and breaking it down, they might not even consider that they know it, but it just automatically feels sort of nostalgic, and they know that they like it, and they don't even know why. But it's because they know the song.
Yeah,
right?
Exactly.
Subconsciously.
Yeah, literally.
Yeah, it's really
The thought of someone not knowing that song is actually almost mad, but that's something you got to remember as a producer. Like, times move so fast, and we're all getting old. So there's and you know, like not kids, but like younger, you know, the younger generation.
They won't know.
They won't know it, no. Like, which sounds mad. It's like, how can you not know such a massive hit? But yeah.
But you're giving these tunes like a new lease of life. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Was you know, and again for this particular record, it's very much like drill inspired, but it's quite unique in the fact that it's like it leans into more sort of like pop and commercial elements of things. You know, giving Central Cee a platform to sort of demonstrate his ability at that level. But you know, that's another question we can get into. But this tune in particular, for it being drill, is very upbeat and happy. Was that like a conscious thing of like trying to create something like that?
It definitely wasn't a conscious thing. It's probably more just a subconscious thing. Like at that point, especially like the dark drill like just evolved, I guess, right? Like there was so much underground drill, and like eventually it's just sort of eased its way into the commercial world. And obviously, you know, we both like making hit music, so it's just like, okay, if the wider public, it's like trap music, you know what I mean? Like trap music is pop music really these days, but it started off just in the clubs in Atlanta or wherever it was. You know what I mean? So it's just a natural progression, I guess. And yeah, we like making things that sound, you know, like anyone could listen to it, I guess.
Yeah, exactly. And that's what sort of done it, because I feel like Doja was, there was a few tunes circulating around it that were hitting that commercial element of things, and you know, able to, you know, give a platform to the genre, to a wider scope. But Doja, you know, knocked the door down completely. You know what I mean? It felt like it was creeping open, and then that tune just came, and it was everywhere. Like, you know, obviously a massive part to its success was its like TikTok trend and stuff like that, with like the, you know, the lyrics that Central Cee saying on it being quite like sort of like polarizing. Do you know what I mean?
Yes.
So like, definitely. But all of those things combined is what has obviously really put it to that point. It's nostalgic, it has commercial value, at the same time it still feels like drill in itself. And then you have obviously a massive artist like Central Cee saying some like very topical, you know, interesting statements on it. You know what I mean? So it was like a hit made by design, I would say.
Man. The styles just aligned. Like, this is the thing, man. Like, so many beats on paper are hits, but really, if Central didn't come and say what he said and just, you know, did his thing on it, then just would have been another beat, really.
Yeah, exactly.
So like all credit to him, really.
Could have ended up on an H album, track 7.
Yeah.
You know, never had its like moment.
Might have been another big song, but you know, it's just one of those things. Like, who knows?
Amazing. Well, enough sort of like talking about it. If you could like break down exactly how it was made, and tell us a little bit about your role in making the record, and then wHYJay's role in making the record. So
generally, our roles are completely interchangeable. Like, we like to move quick. That's the main thing. We don't really tend to sit on, like, I don't know, just like figuring out this one little bit of melody. Like, we just fly through it. Because the best things come quick, really. So same with this. We just chopped up the sample, and then to give it some context, I think the keys came first, or we just put together a quick beat. Like, by this point, making like the drill beat is just so like you don't even think about it.
Yeah, you're not even considering how you're doing it. It's natural.
It's like so fast.
Positioning of like the hats and things like that.
Yeah. So, you know, you've got your basic ingredients, really, like stripped down drill ingredients with no extra stuff, which is kind of why it's probably good. So you've got your rim, which is doing most of the work, keeping that drill rhythm. We all know about that.
Almost acting as they kind of like act as the hat.
Exactly.
Yeah.
This is probably just a quiet layer that you can barely even hear.
Yeah, the off.
Just a little accent. Couple hats. Yeah, 1 sec. I'll just keep these guys on. What are these? Again, just accents. No extra things in between too much, except for this little thing at the end, which is, again, you know, any just sounds that kind of
and bridging the end of the loop.
Exactly.
Yeah, giving it a bit of like difference, so it's not just one straight continuous loop.
There's a lot of like cuts here now. I think this beat went through quite a journey in the end, to be fair, because obviously we can get into that later on, but you know, the sample was potentially not going to get cleared, this and that. And then I think at one point we like matched the cuts that Central probably asked for with the engineer that he was recording with.
So they would have been recording it with a 2-track, and they've done all these cuts as part of the vibe, and then you've rebuilt that in the project.
Yeah, I can't remember exactly why, but at some point.
I was going to say, normally that sort of falls down to the engineer, doesn't it? Like you send the stems over and then they match how the recording was done.
Yeah, again, I'm not sure, but it definitely looks like we've been chopping and changing. Because,
I think it's a good thing that you do it, because you have more creative control over it, and obviously understanding how the beat was made, you can do it in a way that's maybe better suited to the record than rather than just doing like a straight cut.
Yeah, exactly. So that's like, you've got your hats and your rims doing the bulk of the groove there, and then obviously kick. Snare. Nothing out of the ordinary, really. That same young chop snare, any sort of kick that sounded good, and then the simplest bass line you could possibly think of. Extend the loop.
I was going to say, when analysing this tune, it is super simple, the bass line.
There's no glide or anything.
Yeah, and that's quite unusual almost for drill.
Yeah.
But I think that's what helped lean in to it becoming a bit more like of a commercial record.
Yeah.
Because you're giving and you're allowing Central to sit on the record rather than compete with the record.
Yeah, exactly, man. Like, every producer will know this, like, because there's so much content out there that stresses this, but like, don't overdo it, basically. And as a producer, when you sat there, this is why we like working quick as well, because we don't give ourselves the opportunity to overdo it. We do it all the time. Still, we overdo it all the time. That's like one of the main things that we try and not do, basically. So
it's a very powerful 808 though.
Yeah, I guess so.
I guess that's in the secret bank of 808s.
Not even if, for anyone that wants to know, it's the Hussin Beats 808 pack.
I guarantee you there's hundreds of people right now watching this video writing that down.
Yeah, probably, it's an old pack. It's out there. Yeah, I think he's Dutch, old type man. I use his sounds a lot. We both do, to be fair. And if he's not Dutch, I'm sorry, Hussein. But yeah, I mean, simple stuff. And then yeah, if I unmute the sample, so the sample kind of just stays straight, but because the bass moves down, it gives the sample sort of the, you know, your brain thinks it's also moving.
Yeah, like the harmonics.
Exactly, yeah. Right.
Yeah.
Sounds a bit mad, but yeah. Again, it's just the quickest of beats. Okay, sweet. And then from then, yeah, okay, so the keys as well. So in the intro, you get these broken down keys.
Are these played in?
These are played in, yeah, yeah.
yeah.
Two very simple chords, just like the fifth down. So you get this at the start with the right, and he's already flowing over this bit. Bass bass, and then yeah. So these vocal chops that wHYJay sent, slightly my favorite part of the beat, to be honest with you.
I was going to ask. There's a lot of sort of like almost like textural perks that come in and out of the record.
Yeah, yeah.
That are just keeping the interest and keeping the development going.
Yeah. Honestly, it was a blessing that we had to make the beat in the way we made it, because I'm sure we had no time to like mix it. We had no time to like, I'm pretty sure we sent Central like a bit of a peppered version where these things weren't like fully on grid. I'm not sure. I've got loads of versions of this beat. I think this is the cleaned up version, but the groove was a bit clunky. Right. Just because some things weren't fully quantized.
And you've just not even taken the time to...
Yeah, because like the feeling, it was like, it feels good. It's good enough to send, you know. We try and be as diligent as possible when you know, sending, especially things to big artists. But I guess this one just didn't really, you know, Central obviously wasn't bothered by the minor faults in it.
Do you think Central knew that this was a banger when he heard the beat? Like he knew what he could do.
Well, apparently he told us that he'd heard the beat and he just skipped past it the first time.
Really?
Yeah. And then I think months later he had this bar that he wrote to a next beat. Somehow, I can't remember exactly the story he told us, but I think he just basically went back and put him on that, and then obviously he must have thought, okay, that's probably...
Wow, so we almost never got the song.
We almost never got Doja.
That's crazy.
So yeah, like, I don't know. Back then it was just like, oh, is Central too cool for like samples, and you know what I mean? I feel like sample drill at a point had a bit of a stigma attached to it.
Yeah, there was a few people, not saying names, that were doing it, and it was like, did you want to sort of get wrapped up in that same...
It was an air of that,
yeah,
you know what I mean? But obviously he does what he wants, clearly. So,
yeah, well, and he did it and dominated it.
Exactly,
you know what I mean?
Yeah,
he did it the best. So.
Yeah.
Any other parts of the instrumental? I heard there was a sax line at the end of it. Very interesting.
A little trumpet thing, horn thing that just sounds like this. Obviously, there was some sidechain going on, which I'm on the newer version. This is like on the older version of Ableton, but yeah, just again, bro, we didn't really put too much thought into that either. Like that was just like, as soon as wHYJay sent me this, like these little vocals, I was like, oh, okay, yeah, sweet. It's kind of all it needs, you know. It does this, then you got this little, you know what I mean, just little things.
Where's he getting these samples from? Do you know?
It would have been Arcade probably.
Oh, okay.
At the time, like one of the like vocal lines. Either that or we go splice. The way we do it is like we just go like, if we're cooking, like we know the key of the beat that we're cooking in, and then we'll just like, we don't even use splice bridge. That's obviously a bit of, I don't even think it existed back then, but we'll just input the key vocal and then just like flick through until something sounds good.
Do you find nowadays with splice being so popular that it's kind of like risky to use, in the fact that like, you know, someone out there has already made a beat with it?
It depends what you're using and how you're using it. Like if there's some like thick convoluted thing that like bare producers know about and it like fits a lot of beats and music, I'm not too bothered about it. Like if it works, it works. But if it's just like an 8-bar hook, like vocal thing, I've heard it happen in like house music where I'm just like, oh yeah, okay, especially on TikTok, man. Like I used the vocal and I was just like, oh, this sounds great actually. Just this like random house thing I was making. And then over the next week, I literally heard so many different versions of just the same vocal, and I was just like, oh man, like, yeah.
Yeah.
So, I mean, yeah, and also, like, I let go of, like, trying to please the producer community a long time ago. It's just, like, the general public doesn't even know what Splice is, let alone, like...
No. What do you mean by that, trying to please the producer community? Like, what?
Well, it's not necessarily please them, but, like, be the guy that just has all these, like, you know, it's cool in that, like, there's a time and place for, like, having the right sort of, like, secret sounds and that no one else has, but, you know, Drip Too Hard by Lil Baby and Gunna, that was just a Splice loop. But obviously he then, like, put some gross beat on it. It doesn't sound like... So, like, I don't know.
And I think that there's something unique in, and there's definitely skill in how you produce in terms of less is more.
Yeah.
It's so easy to overproduce. That's the most common mistake, is overproduction. Exactly. And then, you know, putting aside that, you've taken a legendary record and you've flipped it into something totally brand new. Do you know what I mean? Like, you know, to me, that's something where you don't just need musical skill. You need to be able to, like, see out of the box. You need to be able to hear what a song can do, not just musically, but, like, you know, what it can do to someone's, like, soul almost. You know what I mean? Like, how it's going to connect with people. Like, the vision. That's what a real producer is to me personally, seeing past that. But yeah, really cool. I mean, if we can get a little snippet of, like, the whole beat being played through, that would be amazing.
Yeah, of course. So from the intro, well, I mean, I suppose, because this was like one of the things that we thought, oh yeah, this is sick, because it kind of like starts by, you just give them a lick of the sample and you instantly get that feeling of like, oh, what
I know
that?
this.
Yeah, I know this,
yeah.
You know. You know what I mean? That little vocal instantly just gives it the, oof. It's just a bed.
Yeah.
There's nothing really too impressive about it, honestly. Like, it's just a bed for Central to just do its thing.
Yeah. That's what you've created. And but as I said, you know, you've ticked those boxes consciously or unconsciously that have made this record. It's a genre that people are finding interesting, that was on the growth. You've made it nostalgic by adding that sample in there, and then you've given it to someone that has a voice and they're just willing to say, you know, quite out there things. You know what I'm saying? So it was, you know, it was a track destined to be huge in my opinion.
Man. No, for sure.
But yeah,
man.
Amazing. So you say with this record, you know, creating space was an important thing for you. How do you go about finding that balance between making a record have space and openness and leaving the room for the artist to do his thing, but at the same time making it interesting enough to be captured and, you know, spark an idea?
Yeah. I mean, different artists like different levels of energy and beats. Like, there are beats that we make that are just like, there's like soft clipping on the master and it's all going and there's bare like swooshes and, you know what I mean? So there's a time and place for it, but we knew that Central, obviously we didn't even make this with Central in mind, but I guess wHYJay probably sent it because he thought this, but all the Central beats are quite like simple and there's not a lot going on. And I guess with this particular case, like, I don't know, like, because we didn't in the moment over listen to it a bunch of times, like these little vocal chops, and the subtle switch ups in the rhythm of the piano, I guess, like they were just enough to just keep your attention. And honestly, that is a skill that I don't think, well, me personally, I'll ever perfect. Like, it's one of those things that sometimes you get right, sometimes you don't. Like, you need to just be in the right headspace at the right time and just like be quite diligent. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Amazing. Well, very well thought out, and obviously, there's a reasoning for it. Thank you so much for coming and showing us this project.
Pleasure.
It's a pleasure for me as well to see it.
Man.
If you've been living under a rock and you haven't heard the song Doja, please go and check it out and check out all of LiTek's other productions.
Yeah, man.
And we will catch you guys in the next one. Safe.